Hi, I'm Victoria and welcome to Eyes on Crime. Today we're covering a case that has left people stunned and honestly furious. A young woman was found with more than 20 stab wounds to her chest, neck, and the back of her head. And somehow her death was ruled a suicide. Let that sink in, because by the end of this episode, I want you to ask yourself the same question her parents have been asking for over a decade. How could anyone believe this was self-inflicted? Let's talk about who Ellen Greenberg was. Ellen Ray Greenberg, known to those closest to her as Ellie, was born on July 23, 1983, and raised in New York, an only child to Josh and Sandy Greenberg. Her dad was a periodontist. Her mom worked as a dental hygienist. So yeah, it made sense that Ellen had that bright, picture-perfect smile. But it wasn't just her smile people remembered, it was her energy. The way she made people feel. Safe, heard, and comfortable. That was Ellen. At first she thought she'd be a speech therapist. She started the program and got through part of it. But something didn't feel right. So she made a change. She moved to Philadelphia, got her teaching certification, and by 2008, she was a first-grade teacher at Juniata Park Academy. Friends said it fit her perfectly. She was patient, nurturing, she adored kids, and she dreamed about having a family of her own someday. That same year, she met Sam Goldberg. He worked as a television producer at NBC. They started dating, fell in love, and got engaged. They planned to get married at the Hershey Hotel, one of the most iconic wedding venues in Pennsylvania. Ellen picked out her dress and the save the dates had already gone out. But then things started to change. In the weeks leading up to January 26th, Ellen's parents noticed something was off. She seemed more distant. Overwhelmed, that usual sparkle she carried with her gone. Still, she went through the motions, kept her routines, but emotionally something felt different. Her mom gently suggested that she talk to someone, and Ellen agreed. She followed through. She went to every session, she wanted help, and she meant it. After just 3 appointments, she told her parents she was already feeling 75% better. Around that time, she told her dad she was thinking about quitting her job and moving back home. That conversation stuck with him. He said it didn't sound like Ellen at all. But even then, she made one thing clear. The wedding was still on. Dr. Ellen Berman, her psychiatrist, prescribed Klonopin, Xanax, and Zoloft. She also gave Ellen Ambien to help her sleep. When Ellen's father was later asked about her mental state, he didn't hesitate. She was anxious. She was under stress. But she was not suicidal. She was taking care of herself, doing what she was supposed to do. On the morning of January 26, 2011, Ellen called her mom on the way to school. They talked about taxes, just boring, everyday stuff. She mentioned paperwork she needed to sort through and a few deadlines that were coming up. Nothing about the conversation seemed unusual. Later that day, a blizzard swept across Pennsylvania, temperatures dropped, roads iced over, schools began dismissing early so teachers, students, and families could all get home safely. It was the kind of storm that sent people packing fast just to stay ahead of it. Ellen was one of them. She stayed behind to make sure every child in her class got picked up safely and didn't leave until the last kid was gone. By the time she walked out, the snow was already falling hard. The roads were slick. On her way home, she stopped to get gas. She also called a nearby restaurant. It's never been confirmed whether she was placing an order, canceling one, or just checking something, but it's a detail that matters, because it shows something important. Ellen was still going about her day like normal. She lived with her fiancé, Sam Goldberg, in a 6th-floor apartment at the Venice Lofts, just outside of Philadelphia. Sam, a TV producer for NBC at the time, had also come home early because of the storm. By the time Ellen arrived, he was already there. At 3:47 p.m., Ellen sent a text to a family member about a school delay. Her laptop showed activity again at 4:46. From the outside, it looked like she was winding down for the day. At around 4:50 p.m., Sam decided to go to the gym, located right on the 1st floor of the building. He didn't need to leave, just a quick trip downstairs. Surveillance footage showed him entering at 4:54. He stayed just over 30 minutes and was seen leaving at 5:26. He stopped to check his mail and returned to his apartment by 5:30. Now this is where things get strange. Really strange. Sam returned upstairs, walked to the apartment, and tried to open the door. He said it was locked, and that struck him as odd. According to him, that particular lock was only used at night. He jiggled the handle, knocked, and when there was no answer, he started texting Ellen. Hello? Open the door. What are you doing? I'm getting pissed. Hello? You better have an excuse. What the F? You have no idea. According to Sam, nearly an hour went by with no response from Ellen. That alone has raised questions, because if you believe his timeline, he waited for almost 60 minutes, pacing, texting, growing frustrated, before doing anything else. Eventually, he went downstairs to speak with the building's security guard, a 67-year-old man named Phil Henton. Sam claimed he asked Phil to help him break into the apartment because he knew Ellen was inside and wasn't answering the door. Phil told him no, it was against policy to help someone force their way into a unit even if they lived there. Phil called Ellen twice. No answer. So Sam reportedly went back upstairs, still locked out, and unsure of what to do next. What happened next has been picked apart for years, especially the phone calls Sam made before he ever dialed 911. According to Sam, he was locked out of the apartment and wasn't sure what to do, so he called his cousin Camian. Camian was at home with his parents, and during the call, he put it on speaker so his dad, Sam's uncle, James Schwartzman, could hear what was going on. According to Sam, they were still on the line when he broke down the door, and they heard him scream. They told him to call 911, and that's what he did.
Help! I need a emergency now. I just walked to my apartment. My fiance's on the floor with blood everywhere.
What is the address?
4601 Flat Rock Road. Please come. Help.
4601
now. Flat Rock Road.
Is this a house or apartment?
Oh no. Oh no. It's an apartment. Please hurry, please.
Where is she bleeding from?
I don't know. I can't tell.
No, sir, you have to calm yourself down in order to get you some help.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm looking at her right now. I can't see anything. There's nothing broken. She's bleeding. Ellie!
You don't know where she's bleeding from? Can't tell where the blood's coming from?
I think her head. I think she hit her head, But it's everywhere.
Okay, sir,
it's everywhere.
You think she might have fallen? Do you know what happened?
She may have slipped. There's blood on the table. Her face is a little purple.
Okay, hold on for rescue for her. Stay on the phone. What's wrong?
I went downstairs to go work out. I came back up. The door was latched. My fiance's inside. She wasn't answering. So after about a half hour, I decided to break it down. I see her now, just on the floor with blood. She's not responding.
Okay, is she breathing? Look at her chest. I need you to calm down, and I need you to look at her chest. It's really.
I really don't think she is.
Listen to me. Someone's on the way. Look at her chest. Is she flat on her back?
She's on her back. So I bring her.
Look at her chest and tell me if it's going up and down, up and down.
I don't see her moving.
Okay. Do you know how to do CPR?
I don't.
Okay, I can tell you what to do. Okay, until they get there. I want you to keep her flat on her.
God.
Hello.
Yeah, hi, okay.
Are you willing to do CPR with me over the phone until they get there?
I have to, right?
Okay, so get her flat on her back, bare her chest, okay? You want to rip her shirt off, okay? Kneel down by her side.
Oh, my God. Ellie, please.
Listen, you can't freak out, sir, because you
Okay, I'm trying not to. Her shirt won't come off. It's a zipper. Oh, my God, she stabbed herself.
Where?
She fell in a knife. Oh, no, her knife's sticking out.
Her what?
There's a knife sticking out of her heart.
Oh, she stabbed herself?
I guess so. I don't know where she fell on it. I don't know.
Okay, well, don't touch it.
Okay, so I just let her here now? I mean, what do I do?
No, I mean, you can't. If the knife is in her chest, it's going to be kind of hard for you to do CPR at this time.
Oh, no. Oh, my goodness. Okay.
Police, which operator? 277.
Is someone coming here?
Yes, they are. You said 4601 Flat Rock, right?
Yes.
Okay, someone's on the way. And the knife is still inside?
Wait, so what?
The knife is still inside of her?
Yes, I didn't take it out.
Was it her chest or what area?
It's in her chest. It looks like it's right in her heart.
Okay, someone's on the way out there. Okay, just get.
Oh my God! Okay,
how old is she?
She's 27.
27, and there's no sign of life at all.
No, please don't be. What?
Pinch her under her arm and tell me if she responds to pain.
Ellie. She's not. Her hands are still warm. I don't know what that means, but there's blood everywhere.
I know, but you can't, and the knife is still inside of her. How far? Can you see how far it went in?
It looks pretty deep.
Okay.
It looks three, and it's a long knife.
Don't touch anything.
Yeah, don't touch anything, okay?
I'm not touching anything. This is I can't believe this, though.
So wait, it was just you there with her?
We're the only ones here.
And she ran in the door, you said latched it shut?
No, I went downstairs to work out, and when I came back up, the door was latched.
Oh.
Like it was, it wasn't like it was, it was like locked from the inside, and I'm yelling, so I'm
Was your house
yelling.
broken into?
No.
So there's no sign of a break-in?
No sign of a break-in at all. I mean, there will be when you get here because I had to break the latch, but to get in.
Okay, 4601.
But if you listen closely, something about it feels off. Sam doesn't mention the knife right away. It takes a while. And when he does bring it up, it almost sounds like he's just now seeing it, like he's realizing it mid-sentence and making sure the 911 operator hears that too. But the way he says it, it doesn't sound like shock. It sounds like he's trying to sound shocked. The phrasing, the delivery, it feels rehearsed, like he's acting out the moment instead of reacting to it. And that disconnect between what he says and how he says it is hard to ignore. There's another detail that stands out. At one point, Sam says Ellen was stabbed in the heart. But think about that. Most people wouldn't say that. Not unless a doctor told them or they had some kind of medical training. In that kind of moment, most people would just say stabbed in the chest. It's another detail that makes you pause, because either he guessed with strange accuracy or he knew exactly what had happened. Then there's something even more unsettling. On that 911 call, Sam described Ellen as already purple. But if he was only at the gym for a little over 30 minutes, how could she have already been in that state? It raises a major question about how long she'd really been gone, and whether he was actually locked out or buying time. What also doesn't sit right with a lot of people is what happened before the 911 call was ever made, before police were called, before paramedics even knew there was a victim. An influential attorney already knew something had happened. James Schwartzman isn't just family. He's a high-powered Philadelphia lawyer with deep political ties. Today he serves as the president judge of the Pennsylvania Court of Judicial Discipline. But even back then, his name meant something, with both Camion and James being attorneys, and one already well-connected. It's hard not to notice the convenience, because if something terrible had just happened, they'd both know exactly what to say, and maybe, more importantly, what not to. It wasn't until 6:28 p.m. that he finally called 911. 3 minutes later, at 6:31, surveillance cameras caught him outside the building, phone in hand mid-call. Emergency responders arrived shortly after. When first responders walked into the kitchen, this is what they saw. Ellen was seated on the floor, slumped back slightly, resting on her lower back and butt. Her legs were stretched out in front of her. Both arms were extended straight down, hands relaxed and slightly turned inward. She was wearing tan Ugg boots, gray sweatpants, a dark gray zip-up hoodie, and a dark gray t-shirt underneath. Her head was tilted forward, with her chin leaning on her right shoulder, and the right side of her face pressed up against the lower kitchen cabinet. And then there was the knife. A black-handled knife was lodged in the upper left part of her chest, still sticking out. That knife was tested, and the only DNA on it was Ellen's. There was blood, a lot of it. No signs of a struggle, no broken furniture, no blood anywhere else in the apartment. Everything else, completely untouched. Whatever happened to Ellen didn't look like a moment of panic. It looked sudden and calculated. One detail, though, couldn't be ignored. In Ellen's hand was a white towel, bright, crisp, not a single drop of blood. And for a crime scene this violent, that didn't happen by chance. It looks like someone put it there, deliberately. Out of everything at the scene, that towel might be the hardest to explain. Something so clean, in a scene so violent, it doesn't make sense. And then there was what was sitting on the kitchen counter, a fruit salad, blueberries, orange slices, all freshly washed, half prepped, 2 clean knives in the sink. It looked like she had just started making a snack and then stopped instantly. Whatever happened to Ellen wasn't frantic. It was fast and calculated, like a blitz attack from behind. But let's talk about the door. There was no damage to the lock, no sign that the door had been kicked in or forced open, except for one thing. The swing bar lock, the kind you'd find in a hotel room, was broken where it attached to the door frame. Police confirmed the only visible damage was at the swing bar, where one tiny screw had been ripped from the frame, and that screw was never found. And while that kind of lock might look secure, it's really not. There are videos online, plenty of them, showing how easy it is to manipulate a swing latch from the outside using something as simple as an elastic band or a shoelace. In some cases, even slamming the door hard enough can cause the latch to catch without anyone actually locking it from the inside. Anyone who's stayed in hotels or watched travel safety videos has probably seen those tricks, and yes, they work. Now, I'm not saying that's what happened here, but it's important to understand this. Just because the swing bar was engaged doesn't mean Ellen was the one who locked it. The violence in the kitchen didn't match the rest of the apartment. Everything else was untouched, quiet, orderly, like nothing had happened at all, except for in the bathroom, where her makeup case and toiletry bag were sitting out next to her pashmina scarf as if she had started packing. And then there was the detail that still weighs on her parents. Ellen usually wore socks around the apartment, but when she was found, she was wearing her winter boots. It made them wonder, was she getting ready to leave? Just minutes after first responders arrived, Ellen was pronounced dead at 6:40 p.m. Based on what the medical examiner saw that night, her death was ruled a homicide. Sam was reportedly questioned upstairs for nearly 3 hours. No attorney, just him and the detectives. After that, he voluntarily went down to district headquarters. No cuffs. And when they examined him, no blood on his clothing, no blood on his shoes, not a single trace. But what happened the next day raised even more questions. According to the timeline published on CrimeTimelines.com, just hours after Ellen was pronounced dead, Sam's uncle, James Schwartzman, contacted the apartment manager, Melissa Ware. He said he needed to get inside the unit to retrieve a suit for Sam to wear to Ellen's funeral. Melissa didn't make that decision on her own. She called the police first. They told her the crime scene had been released, that it was fine to let him in. They even gave her the go-ahead to call a professional cleanup crew. But that's not all that happened once he got inside. They collected Ellen's personal laptop, her work laptop, her phone, and Sam's laptop too. All of it gone within 24 hours. After the scene was cleared, investigators reviewed the building's surveillance footage. On the surface, nothing looked out of the ordinary. No unexpected visitors, no one coming or going during the narrow window when Ellen is believed to have died. But there was one big problem. There were no cameras in the hallway, none outside Ellen's apartment door. The only angle recorded was the lobby. So while it looked like no one came or went, there's a stretch of time and space that's completely unaccounted for. Investigators questioned the neighbors. No one reported hearing a thing, except Sam knocking on the door, then eventually breaking it open. Medical experts determined that some of her stab wounds would have severed critical nerves, ones responsible for motor function and coordination. And the wound that ultimately killed her was to the chest. The point is, if those nerves were damaged first, she wouldn't have had the strength or ability to inflict the fatal stab. Even more disturbing, there was dried blood on Ellen's left cheek, but it had dried sideways. That only makes sense if she had been lying down when she bled, and then propped up afterward. Her injuries also pointed to something else. They weren't all made by the same weapon. One knife was smooth, the other serrated, especially the deep gash on her scalp, which experts said had to come from a serrated blade. But to this day, no serrated knife has ever been found. And then there was the blood on Ellen's Ugg boots. Blood that would only be there if she were standing when she was attacked, not sitting, not slumped. The position she was found in, legs out in front, propped against a cabinet, doesn't match the blood evidence. Experts have called it a blitz attack. Fast, violent, from behind, so fast there's no time to react, no chance to fight back, no defensive wounds. And on Ellen's body, there were more signs something wasn't right. On her right arm, her abdomen, her leg, there were bruises, 11 in total, but not all from the same time. Some were fading, others were fresh. That kind of pattern tells you this wasn't new. It had been happening for a while. When asked, Sam chalked it up to yoga or Pilates. But Ellen's father said that wasn't possible. She didn't take either of those classes, which makes you wonder what really caused them. After everything investigators saw at the scene and everything the autopsy revealed, Dr. Marlon Osborne completed the draft report on January 27th. Based on the severity and pattern of Ellen's injuries, he ruled her death a homicide. With that ruling in hand, police applied for a search warrant. It was approved the very next day, January 28th. Once inside the apartment, they seized assorted clothing, blood samples, a diamond ring, latent fingerprints, and a Rubbermaid container. But by then, it was too late. The apartment had already been cleaned, and the electronics that could have held key evidence already taken. It wasn't until January 29th that police finally recovered all 4 devices from James Schwartzman. So think about that. The autopsy said homicide, but the evidence, it was already carried out before anyone even thought to look closer. But then in March 2011, a supposedly pivotal meeting took place involving the Philadelphia Police Department, the medical examiner's office, and the district attorney's office. After that meeting, Dr. Marlon Osborne reversed his initial ruling, changing Ellen's manner of death from homicide to suicide. Remember that meeting, because what happened behind those doors changed everything, because investigators treated Ellen's death as a suicide from the very beginning. No one, not Sam, not anyone, was treated as a suspect. There were no fingerprint tests, no luminol, no real investigation. There were no follow-up interviews, no second opinions. No one pushed back or pressed for answers. As public doubt grew, the Greenbergs refused to let their daughter's case fade into the background. They gave national interviews. CNN, The Dr. Oz Show, The Philadelphia Inquirer, spoke to anyone who would listen and never pointed fingers. They just kept asking questions. They launched a GoFundMe, created a Facebook page, started a petition, filed multiple lawsuits, paid out of pocket for independent forensic reviews. They pushed for new technology like photogrammetry to re-examine the wounds, and they kept doing it for more than a decade. When no one in power was willing to step up, Ellen's parents went elsewhere. They turned to outside experts, people with no ties to the case, no politics, no pressure, just the evidence. And what those experts uncovered made it even harder to believe this was suicide. If you've followed this case at all, you've probably heard the name Tom Brennan. He's a former Pennsylvania State Police detective, a member of the FBI's Behavioral Science Unit, and he's been working pro bono on Ellen's case since 2013. In an interview with Gisela Kay from Grizzly True Crime, Brennan explained just how badly the investigation was mishandled from day one. The first person inside the apartment wasn't even a detective, it was a firefighter. He was the one who pronounced Ellen dead. But somehow he was never interviewed. Police never spoke to Ellen's psychiatrist. They never reviewed all the autopsy findings. According to Brennan, by the time they ruled it a suicide, they still hadn't examined critical wounds like the deep gash on the side of her scalp or the stab marks to the back of her neck. And according to Brennan's reenactment, using a woman the same height and build as Ellen, there was no physical way she could have inflicted all those injuries on herself. He also addressed the so-called suicide shadow searches found on Ellen's computer. The FBI couldn't verify them. A separate forensic analysis came to the same conclusion. No such searches existed, but in 2019, the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office claimed Ellen had searched terms like painless suicide, quick suicide, and methods of suicide. That claim has been heavily disputed. Both the FBI and independent analysts found no record of those searches on her computer. It's a detail that's sparked debate ever since. Even more disturbing, Brennan says the autopsy referenced a report by renowned pathologist Dr. Lucy Rourke Adams. But she told him directly she never even worked on the case. She didn't write a report. She didn't examine Ellen's body. She didn't bill for any services. Another pathologist, Dr. Lindsay Emery, was reportedly told not to submit her findings in writing. Brennan says that order came from inside the medical examiner's office. And one last thing, when Brennan finally got access to Ellen's case file, it wasn't where you'd expect. It wasn't in an archive. It wasn't properly stored. It was buried in a closet inside the Philadelphia medical examiner's office, shoved under a box of Christmas decorations. For a case this serious, that detail says everything. At this point, Brennan and Ellen's parents have filed 2 civil lawsuits, one to change the cause of death from suicide to undetermined or homicide, and another that alleges a full-blown cover-up by city officials. So, remember that secret meeting I told you about? That shift has remained one of the most controversial aspects of this case, especially with allegations that someone at that meeting was granted immunity, and that officials didn't just suggest a change, they actively pushed for it. Even more concerning, a former medical examiner later allegedly came forward years after the fact, saying she resigned in 2013 because of the pressure she faced surrounding several cases, including Ellen's. In a sworn statement, she described that March 2011 meeting as a turning point. She claimed the decision had already been made behind closed doors, and that from that moment on, Ellen's death was never going to be treated as a homicide. But even with all that, the case continues to stall in court. Brennan says what happened to Ellen and what's happened to her family since is unconscionable. And he's not giving up. He says he's ready to get this case in front of a jury. He wants to subpoena witnesses. He wants the truth out in the open. In 2019, Ellen's parents filed a civil lawsuit against the Philadelphia Medical Examiner's Office and the pathologist who conducted Ellen's autopsy, Dr. Marlon Osborne. That case was filed in the Court of Common Pleas. What they're asking for is simple: change the manner of death. At the very least, mark it as undetermined. And yet, even now, that hasn't happened. The part that's hard to hear? Dr. Osborne, who originally ruled Ellen's death a homicide, admitted that he changed it to suicide because police pressured him to. Since then, new forensic tools have given even more insight into what happened. A technology called photogrammetry, basically a 3D mapping of Ellen's wounds, was used to reconstruct the scene, and what it showed was clear. Not all of the 20 wounds could have been self-inflicted. In early 2020, the Greenbergs had a small legal win. The judge allowed their lawsuit to move forward. Then in August of 2022, the Chester County District Attorney's Office announced they were reopening the case. And then there's Sam Goldberg. He remarried almost exactly 3 years after Ellen's death on January 11, 2014. His new wife, Carolyn Faye Schnee, comes from a prominent New York family of real estate agents. The wedding was held at the Plaza Hotel. Together they now have 2 children. Sam kept in touch with Ellen's parents for a while, but eventually he told them he'd moved on. For more than a decade, Sam stayed silent while questions, public pressure, and media coverage continued to build. Then in December of 2024, he finally spoke. He gave an exclusive interview to People magazine and also released a written statement through CNN. In that statement, he described Ellen as a wonderful person and said he still mourns her deeply. He insisted her death was the result of mental illness, not foul play. He said he's been the target of unfair criticism and that false narratives have taken a toll on him and his family. He asked the public to stop jumping to conclusions and instead dig deeper. But for Ellen's parents, those words don't erase the facts. The autopsy, the unanswered questions, the inconsistencies that still haven't been addressed. Update, a major break in the case. 14 years after Ellen Greenberg was found with 20 stab wounds in her apartment, the case that's haunted her parents and baffled forensic experts just took a major turn. In February 2025, right before the long-awaited civil trial was about to begin, Ellen's family and the city of Philadelphia reached a legal settlement. And as part of that agreement, Ellen's case will finally be reopened and reinvestigated. But that's not all. Dr. Marlon Osborne, the medical examiner who first ruled Ellen's death a homicide, then changed it to suicide, has now publicly reversed his decision. In a new signed legal verification, Osborne said he no longer believes Ellen died by suicide. He pointed to new forensic evidence, questions about whether her body had been moved, and the expert findings of neuropathologist Dr. Lindsay Emery, who reviewed Ellen's cervical tissue. For Josh and Sandy Greenberg, this was the breakthrough they'd spent more than a decade fighting to see. The details of Ellen's wounds are almost too disturbing to process. 10 of the stab wounds were to the back of her neck. One reached her heart, another punctured her liver, and one at the base of her skull caused a bleeding stroke. Experts have repeatedly said those kinds of injuries would have made it physically impossible to keep going, let alone stab yourself again. And yet, after pressure from police, the ruling was declared a suicide. That decision changed everything that followed. It shut down the investigation, it blocked access to certain case files, and it fueled a decade-long narrative that blamed Ellen while protecting everyone else involved. But now, that ruling has officially been walked back by the same person who made it. And this time, it's on record. It's all being looked at again. The civil case, meanwhile, is still moving forward. The Greenbergs are now targeting 3 individuals directly tied to the investigation: Osborne, former Chief Medical Examiner Sam Galeno, and homicide detective John McNamee. A 4th defendant, retired homicide sergeant Tim Cooney, was recently dismissed. The judge overseeing the case has already stated he's confused as to how a death this violent was ever ruled anything but homicide. There's also the matter of Sam's story, his texts, his timeline, the 911 call. He said he tried CPR but never mentioned the knife still lodged in Ellen's chest, not until the dispatcher prompted him. Now that the ruling has been reversed, every one of those details matters more than ever. The city of Philadelphia tried to argue that a medical examiner can make a mistake but can't be forced to change a ruling. But with this reversal on record, that argument just collapsed. The next step? Finally doing what should have been done from day one, a full investigation. And for Ellen's family, it's not about revenge. It's about stopping the lies. It's about ending the narrative that their daughter did this to herself. And it's about, finally, after all this time, having her death treated the way it always should have been. Not a suicide, but a homicide. And that's where we're going to leave it for today. I'll be keeping a close eye on any updates in this case because something tells me this isn't over yet. Thank you for watching Eyes on Crime. If you want to hear more cases like this, make sure you're subscribed. Ellen deserves justice, so please share this episode and help keep her story alive.